guys, I'm Amanda, aka The Environmensch, and today I am going to show you how to make your own nut milk right at home. Now I know a bunch of you probably already know about cashew milk and almond milk and other amazing nut milks that are out there in stores, but I am going to introduce you today to walnut milk. Walnut milk is something new for me that I've been making for the past few months after a friend's mom introduced me to it actually, and I love it. It is so creamy and delicious and really is just an amazing way to avoid the waste that goes along with going into a store and buying a carton of milk. So actually making your own nut milk from home is faster and cheaper than even going to the store, picking a carton off the shelf and then bringing it home, unbagging it, and then using it to drink and then having to either toss or find a way to recycle the carton. Some places you can recycle those cartons and sometimes you can't because often they are mixed materials, and it really just depends on your municipality. So to avoid all of that, we're gonna make nut milk from home. So let's get into the video and I will show you how to do that. Just before we get into making our own walnut milk, I want to clear up a myth that's out there around nut milk in general. One thing I get asked a bunch when I tell people that I make my own nut milk at home is, Amanda, don't nuts and doesn't nut milk take a lot of water to produce? Isn't that really bad for the environment? And I want to clear something up here. On one hand, nuts in general, and some nuts in particular, do take a lot of water to produce. But when you compare the amount of water that it takes to make any nut milk to the amount of water that it takes to make dairy milk, it is not even close. Take, for example, the most water-intensive nut out there, almonds. 1 liter of almond milk takes about 384 liters of water to produce. Now that sounds like a lot, but if we also consider that cow's milk, 1 liter of cow's milk takes about 1,016 liters of water to produce, it is not even comparable. And that's just taking the water factor into the equation. It's also not taking into effect the impact of the deforestation, of the methane, of the waste, of the land use that it takes to actually produce dairy milk. And frankly, the dairy and animal agriculture industry, in my opinion, oftentimes is just straight up cruel. And I don't really care to support that kind of industry, especially when I can make plant milk and nut milk right at home that is faster and cheaper than going to the store and buying dairy milk. So with that said, and with that information, I hope that that clears some of the myths that are out there about nut milk, and let's start making our own walnut milk. So first you want to soak about 2 cups of walnuts overnight, or you can do the cheater way and just boil them for 15 minutes until they are soft. Then give them a good rinse under the sink with some cold water just to get any little loose pieces off, and put them into your high-powered blender. Then you want to add 7.5 to 8 cups of cold water. It's important that the water is cold so that you don't cook your walnuts accidentally. Then add a pinch of salt, some vanilla or almond extract, about a teaspoon will do. A sweetener, I like to use monk fruit, but you can use maple syrup or sugar or a few dates, whatever you like. Then you just want to blend it all up. I'm using a cloth to cover my blender because I got it secondhand and the top is a little wonky. But you just blend for about 30 seconds. And sometimes then I like to speed it up a little bit for the last 10 to 12 seconds or so, so that I can get all of the walnut pieces real tiny and barely there. Then you want to pour it into a fine mesh strainer. You can also use a nut milk bag, but I find that a strainer that you probably already have works just fine. And you'll see that it's super frothy and white. It looks amazing. To get off the pieces on top, I just use a little spoon or I don't even know what you call this thing, but I just move the pulp around. This way all the liquid goes into the bowl. I then save the walnut pulp in a airtight container so that I can use to put it in other recipes. I'll do a video on some nut pulp recipes another day. And there you have the beautiful walnut pulp all in there. You can stick that in your fridge really tight, keep it in the chilled back section of your refrigerator, and it'll last for 2 up to 3 days. Next, you want to pour your walnut milk into a container. I'm using an old kombucha bottle that I had. It's about 2 liters, which is perfect because that fills it pretty much all the way up to the top, and I highly recommend using a funnel. I have tried not using one and it makes a big mess, so lessons learned. Put your top back on and you want to put it into your fridge, and this will last for about 6 days. You'll have to shake it up because since it doesn't have any preservatives, the walnuts will sink to the bottom. So just give it a good shake before you use it. And there you have beautiful, delicious walnut milk. So I use this to add to my granola to make some homemade cereal. I add it to my coffee, and I use it to make my smoothies in the morning too. I really love this walnut milk, and I hope you do as well. I hope you guys enjoyed learning how to make walnut milk. It is one of my favorite things, and I will be showing you in a future video how to actually use up the walnut pulp or other nut pulp that's left over from making walnut milk to create new recipes so that there's no food waste. So in a future video, I'll be showing you how to make walnut meat tacos along with walnut cookies and some other recipes. So stay tuned for that. And if you want to see more videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. It really means a lot to me, and I would love to keep putting out more and more videos for you all. So thanks so much. Thanks for your support, and I will see you next week. Bye guys.